Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the METUS Tech Show. Today we're going to be speaking with Ed Blair and discussing Y-Series Changeover. But first, the METUS Minute. Brent?
Today's METUS Minute is on pressure transducers. Pressure transducers are devices that measure pressure and then convert the sensed pressure into an electronic signal that is then processed by a microprocessor. Most pressure transducers are capacitive type. They are usually constructed of a durable, compact housing containing two closely spaced parallel plates. The plates are generally made of some sort of metal and are electrically isolated from each other with an insulator or dielectric. One of the plates is stationary. The other acts as a diaphragm that slightly flexes when the pressure is applied to its surface. A slight mechanical flexing on the movable plate caused by the applied pressure will change the gap between the plates. This creates a capacitor that varies in capacitance as more or less pressure is applied. The change in capacitance is sensed by solid-state circuitry that is usually linked to the microprocessor. The solid-state circuitry analyzes the signal and then amplifies its proportional output signal. Pressure sensors can sense pressure from 1 inches of water column to 10,000 psi. The transducer usually has 3 wires. One wire is a common, another provides input voltage, which is usually a DC voltage, and the other wire is an output signal, which can also, but not always, be a DC voltage. Refer to the appropriate service literature charts and graphs when diagnosing a pressure transducer. For example, on City Multi 63HS1, if 5 volts DC is applied to pins 1 and 3, the black and red wires, voltage corresponding to the pressure between pins 1 and 2, black and white wires, will be the output voltage, and this voltage will be converted by the microcomputer. The output voltage is 0.071 volts per 14 pounds. So using the diagnostic graph, a reading of 3.5 volts DC output would equal roughly 601 psi. Thank you, and let's start the show.
The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
All right, so Steve, we were talking about fast food. I mean, I don't anymore go to so many fast food places, but when you were in a truck, what was your go-to spot?
So when I was in a service van, which this happened quite a bit, I wasn't the type of person to bring lunch all the time. We talked about this before. I would heat up SpaghettiOs with a turbo torch.
Yeah, genius.
But that wasn't all the time. I was, I was on the go, so I had to stop somewhere. I got to say a number, and I don't know what the number is now. I think it's a number 7 at McDonald's. 2 cheeseburgers, French fry, and a medium Coke was my go-to. Quick, garbage food. Well, it was delicious to me. And that was my go-to. McDonald's was my number 1. From there would be probably Wendy's, Burger King, something quick. I wasn't really looking to get, go and sit down somewhere and eat a whole bunch of food, and then you don't feel like going back to work afterwards. But if they, the other thing I would do is if I was which I worked in Fall River for quite a bit. So Paul, you know where I'm going with this. Yep. Bakeries, little steak shops. We had these bakeries, and one of them sold these small muffins. They were called chouriço pies. So chouriço is a Portuguese sausage, like chorizo, like a Mexican sausage, but it's got a lot of Portuguese spices and marinades in it. And it would be ground up, and they would make these small chouriço and cheese pies, and you get a bag of them with like 6 of them in there, and that would kind of tide you over. Or you go and grab a pop, which is basically a roll. We'd make sandwiches on the spot. Sometimes get a bag of pops and throw some cheese and butter in it. And unless you're Portuguese, you probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But these were just things that you could grab on the go quickly, and get back to work.
It's officially called a popsicle, which I think literally translated means dry bread. But it was really good bread. It was crispy on the outside, has a unique little shape to it, like I don't know what you'd call this shape, but it was nice and fluffy on the inside. I never had any like particular place I'd go to. I think my favorite was Wendy's because I like the Frosties. You know, you'd eat it with a spoon instead of the McDonald's shakes where you try to drink that through a straw and your head would cave in. It was always hard to do. And Wendy's had.
I was always good for a pizza too. You get like a personal pizza somewhere quick and get in and out and chew on that in a service truck.
I didn't do pizza because it was harder. It was harder to eat pizza driving than it was because everything I used to drive to the next job. I never stopped. Well, very rarely stopped and had lunch. Anyway,
it sounds like a lack of effort to me.
Yeah, no, it is. No, it's called commitment to my job, Ed. That's what it was. I didn't want to take time out for lunch.
I got commitment to pizza. I don't know what you're talking about.
Every pizza is a personal pan pizza if you're committed enough. We've said that before too. So Ed, since you spoke up, what was your fast food go-to?
So I'm here in Atlanta. So for me, it was absolutely Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
In fact, I have such a massive Chick-fil-A addiction that I was invited to a program. It's an invite-only program. So the store operator has to select you. They have to know you well enough to say, yep, this guy belongs to something called the A-list. And you actually get a letter. And you get like a little silver credit card with the fancy script A. And they used to invite you to special events at the restaurant or, you've got to eat enough Chick-fil-A that they're going to spend money on you. So I got a problem.
So when you've come up to Boston, have you been down the street to Nan's?
I have.
And you've had that sandwich? Because I just had one about a half hour ago. I just finished mine. And I love Chick-fil-A, but when I was in the van, Chick-fil-A didn't exist anywhere near here. I think the nearest one was probably Columbia, South Carolina. That's what I'm thinking. But I just had a Nan's, and that's like Chick-fil-A, but on steroids. It's like wicked good. So just make sure you have it. Yeah.
That's not like fast food, though. That's
No, they take their time, and they put a lot of love into it, and they got all the other junk that, most men wouldn't eat, like bulgur and I don't know, quinoa and stuff like that. So, Bryn, you're not a fast food junkie, are you?
I mean, I do it sometimes, especially when I was in a van, because I was horrible about packing my lunches. So my normal order is I just go to McDonald's and get the 2 McDoubles because they were always on the dollar menu or whatever, and a Diet Coke. But there was a time when I worked in Vermont, they had a Chinese buffet that you could get takeout for.
What?
So sometimes for lunch, you'd go in and they'd have the whole buffet set out. They have your styrofoam, container, and you just fill it up, pay at the counter by weight, and then you leave. And that was like the best fast food version of Chinese I've ever had. It was delicious, and I would make, lunch and dinner.
Yeah, I like that. Chinese food I could eat when I'm driving. Yeah, if I went to McDonald's, I'd get the 2 Filet-O-Fish, the large fries, and I'd get a big Coke, and that was it. Still my favorite thing. And Burger King, the thing about Burger King I liked is they had the bacon double Whopper, whatever it was, that had bacon in it. And who has the Baconator?
Wendy's.
That's Wendy's.
Yeah, that was good too. And of course, the chili was a side. Yeah, the Baconator, a Frosty, and a side of chili. And
a single, a double, or a triple.
You guys never did Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's I should have mentioned that. If there was a Taco Bell in the area, I would get the little box, 12-pack of tacos, and I would destroy the whole box on a ride from one 7-Eleven store to another. So to make a repair.
My brother's company is currently run by my nephew, I think he's in his 40s now, but he was a teenager riding with me, and we stopped at Taco Bell and got the big box of 12 tacos, and he was mouthing off, and he goes, and I paid for him, of course, and he goes, "Yep, you can have 2, and I'll have the rest." I go, "I paid for him. I'm going to have 6, and you're going to have, I'm going to have 7, you're going to have 5." And then he made the wise ass comment, and every time he opened his mouth, I knocked him down a taco, and he was down to 3 tacos, and he said, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and not say anything, eat my 3 tacos and be happy. And Kentucky Fried Chicken. They opened a Kentucky Fried Chicken Taco Bell in the same building. I guess it's normal for them to do that. Yeah, and that's when I realized I'm so much closer to a heart attack now than I ever was. But that was
so you just brought up Taco Bell, you just brought up KFC, and that brings back memories too, because in a service van, Chicken Littles.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whoever got a bag of Chicken Littles,
Yeah.
I mean, I would get like 12 of those things, and they're not the same anymore, I don't think, as they were in the 90s, 80s and 90s, but they were just a small chicken sandwich with a little bit of mayo in it, and I would destroy a bag of those things in a truck. But I'll tell you, the best and worst was when on a Friday, particularly one company I worked for, my boss would call all the guys up and say, hey, meet me at such and such restaurant at noon, taking you guys out to eat. And it was like, oh, that's fantastic. But at the same time, I can't go back to work after that.
No.
Because I mean, we would eat steaks and everything else, and sometimes he'd say, "Hey, call it an early day today on a Friday." It was fantastic, but not in the summer. You don't want to do that in the summer.
No.
But anyway,
Yeah.
Chicken Littles.
All right. Okay. Now I can say that I'm not hungry because I don't really do fast food that much anymore. Mostly, I'm going to be honest with you, mostly because my wife won't let me. I have to listen to her, and it's not worth it. So anyway, welcome everyone to the METUS Tech Show. My name is Paul Shavs, and actually, everybody on the show today is in a different remote location. Joining me from an undisclosed location is Steve Pimentel. Steve, say hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. And Bryn Raptor. Bryn, where are you joining us from?
Another undisclosed location.
All right. All right. And once again, I think we're going to have jackets made up for who's been a guest the most. Like Saturday Night Live had you get a jacket when you host 5 times. And I think, Ed, if I'm counting, I think this may be your 3rd, possibly even your 4th time on the show. Ed Blair, welcome and thank you for joining us. And you are also joining us from the Bat Cave somewhere.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. So today we're going to talk about Y series changeover. So real quick, in a nutshell, an R2 has a simultaneous heating and cooling. So I can have one group or one zone calling for heating, another group and another zone calling for cooling. And this right now is the time of year when this might happen. Right now, there are offices all over the country that some are in cooling and some are in heating, depending on what side of the building the sun is on, or they may need heating in the morning, cooling in the afternoon. So we don't worry about changeover with an R2, but with a Y series and an S series as well, we can only be in one mode. The outdoor unit is either in the heat mode or the cooling mode. So we're going to talk about how to change the outdoor unit into the mode that you want it to be in. So who wants to tackle first? Let's start off with the most basic way to do it.
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners, if you like the METUS Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the METUS Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the METUS Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the METUS Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the METUS Training Network today. Now, back to the METUS Tech Show.
Well, I think what we should start with is just to talk about what the logic is as a default. Right. So when you do try to go into mixed modes with a heat pump, what actually happens?
Sure. Good idea.
It essentially, just like with our smart multi equipment, when you have, zones calling for different modes, there's no auto mode where the Y series or a smart multi is going to just change over autonomously. Basically, the last command wins with Mitsubishi equipment. So when you have a unit that's calling for cooling, it's going to try to satisfy that call. If there's a unit that's in heating mode, that unit is going to be in standby. And the system is not going to, once it satisfies the cooling call, switch over to heating to try to satisfy that heating call. We're stuck in that cooling mode. So we need to make sure we don't do anything with those Y series units is we need to make sure they're all in the same mode. We can't have this automatic switching back and forth. So
it's the first call that sets the mode for a Y series system. So if you do nothing else, you just install the equipment straight out of the box. The first call for either heating or cooling puts that 4-way valve in that position, and you're stuck there until you have a unanimous vote to go to the other mode, unless you do something else.
All right. Well, we'll talk
way
about
to put it.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. And we'll talk about the something else here next, or at least one of the something else's.
Yeah. So obviously that poses a lot of issues on large commercial buildings where there's, could be up to, 50 indoor units on a single system. That's going to be a challenge because we all know most people don't have the same level of comfort at a temperature. So there are some ways that we can actually change how that logic works. And probably one of the most simple ways to do it is by dip switches on the outdoor unit. So the function setting that we're trying to change is function number 972. So if you pull up the unit specific service manual, you pull up the service function, or the dip switch function, excuse me.
Yes.
We look up function 972. It will essentially allow us to take the lowest MNet address and use that as our we'll call it a master, like the boss, right? So whatever that particular unit is set to will change the mode for the entire system.
So we can call that the wife, whatever that says, whatever that wife zone says is what goes for the whole house. Is that
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I was thinking, I think the most basic way to do it, if you have a central controller, would be to schedule it. But if I schedule it that April 1st, air conditioning comes on, and then October 1st, the heat comes on, we can have days after October 1st that are really nice and warm, where I might need air conditioning, and we can have days after April 1st, or whatever day I pick. I remember getting a no heat call in June because it was so cold and rainy for several days that people were calling for no heat. So if you have a central controller, easiest thing to do is schedule it, but then what do you do when you get one of those off days? So that's a drawback.
So while you're on the topic of that dip switch, lowest address changes the mode. We also have the representative group mode, which uses that same dip switch, but that lowest address is in that group of units that is going to command that change. Is that correct, Ed?
Yeah, so it lets you, instead of forcing the lowest address on the refrigerant circuit, it lets you select an address, but that group that you pointed at has to be a group of one. It can't be a group of multiple indoor units or it won't work.
Oh.
And what it does is it allows the remote controller for that group and that group only to be able to select mode, right? So if you're at address 2 and representative group is 1, you can cycle between heat, cool, standby, etc. But you can't select auto unless you're either the representative group or you've done that with the dip switch and it's the lowest address.
That makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if we're in a group of indoor units and we're using an ME controller, that ME controller is going to look at those addresses and control every unit in that group. Up to 16 indoor units we can have max in a group. Or if it's an MA controller, the MA controller, on the other hand, does not speak MNet language, does not get an address. It needs to be wired and daisy chained across TB15 on each one of those indoor units in that group. So let's move on to...
hold on a minute. Let's just make this a little more clear. So the difference between using the dip switch to set the lowest address in the system versus selecting a representative group, which is still the lowest address. So I'm trying to see why I would do one and one way and not the other. Can we just go over that, Ed?
Well, you may not have groups. Every unit might be on its own.
Right,
but you may not want to control a group.
It's still a group of one. Let's just say let's just make it simple. I have 10 units, 10 zones. I can go to a dip switch, and what was that dip switch again, Bryn?
So it's going to depend on the equipment. Some of them it's 4-5, some with 4-8. So you definitely want to pull up the service manual to make sure you know which.
Okay, so let's take this. I got 10 indoor units, 1 unit per zone, addressed 1 through 10. I flipped the appropriate dip switches, and I just made address 1 the boss. So call it the main controller. So address 1, that controller is in cooling, the whole system's in cooling. That controller is in heating, the whole system is in heating, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So what would be the difference between that and then representative group?
It's essentially the exact same thing, but it lets you select a different address.
So it doesn't have to be the lowest address. I could say address 7 is going to be the boss.
Correct. But it still has to be a group of 1.
Correct.
So you can't have multiple systems looking at that. So we had a project in the SBU where they were putting LEV kits, kind of 4 LEV kits in a single air rotation unit, and wanted to be able to control everything with just a single set point remote control. And so they were able to use representative group and have the interlock function have everything follow that back and forth to make sure that everything, if it was on, et cetera.
And the representative group is set in the central controller?
Central controller or by dip switch the outdoor unit.
All right. All right, so that's so I was confused there. So guys, sorry about that.
The one thing I would add is that in the central controller, you can set up different weekly schedules. And so maybe your weekly schedule 1 you use for winter, your weekly schedule 2 you use for spring, 3 for summer, et cetera. So you've got some flexibility there. The downside to that strategy is that, the weather is highly changeable. Like it's 80 degrees outside here in Atlanta, and it was freezing we had a freeze warning last week. So using a schedule as a set it and forget it is not super effective, but at least you can change schedules and batches.
Yeah, I could do that if I was in Honolulu. I could set it and forget it. I'm going to have 1 weekly schedule for 52 weeks of the year.
Yeah, and control systems are not at their best when you've got to remember to keep going and using them. Right. I think you were talking about that in the A-coil with Anthony. You don't want to think about your air conditioner. You want to have it do its thing and just be comfortable. So scheduling maybe isn't the best if you're outside of San Diego.
So let's move on to probably the more complicated or the more in-depth way that we can do the Y series changeover, and that's called weighted average. And so essentially weighted average allows for like a point system based on system capacity and distance from set point to be able to control the system changeover. So essentially each unit is going to be assigned points based on what mode it's in, what its capacity is, and then how far away from its set point. And using that point system allows the system to determine whether or not we should be primarily in cooling or in heating based on load, essentially.
Yeah, and Ed, I think this is when we're going to need you on here. But the way I've always understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I have an indoor unit that is 12,000 BTUs and another unit that's 6,000 BTUs, that 12,000 BTU unit is going to have more of a say in when it switches over.
It's going to have a lot more of a say. So the way that calculation works is you end up with a tail that wags the dog here. So the points are actually calculated based on whether or not the unit itself is in setback mode, right? So setback is a selectable dual set point mode, which is typically used where you've expanded your set points. You're trying to save energy, but you don't want to shut the unit off. When the unit is in a mode that's heating, cooling, dry, something other than setback, it will get 1 point if it is basically more than 3 degrees away from set point. So if my set point is 72, it's 75, it's going to get 1 point, and then those points are going to be multiplied by the BTU capacity of that indoor unit. So even if I've got a bonfire inside a room, but I've got a 5-ton unit that's just satisfied, it's never going to switch over. Just the calculation is very poor, and maybe very poor is the wrong way to say it, but if you talk to our service people, they'll say that the reported satisfaction from systems that are using weighted average is very poor. It's not a recommended strategy.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good. Now, I was talking to a guy. He was in one of my classes. I don't know how long ago this was. It may have been 8 or 9 years ago. It may have been a week and a half ago. I really don't remember when it was, but this guy had a job where what I remember about it was seeing the pictures, and it was a unique building. It was an old insane asylum that was converted into condo, and I want to say it was condo offices, and they put Y series in there. And he had a way of changing it over that was totally based on what happened with the temperature outside. Ed, can you walk us through how he might have done that? Because I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to go about that. The controls group at METUS used to have a product called the AHC, or Advanced HVAC Controller. And what it let us do is add an outside air temperature to the system, and then it would automatically force the whole system to change modes based on the outside air temperature. So if I said an upper limit of, let's say, 60 degrees, I don't want to do heating when it's 60 degrees or warmer outside. That would be your upper limit. And then if I say my lower limit is 40 degrees, I don't want to do cooling if it's between 40 or below 40, that would be the lower limit. And so that HVAC controller would swap the whole system over automatically on kind of a duty cycle, right? So the closer I got to that lower limit, the longer the system would be in heating. And then it would swap to cooling for a little while just to make sure that if there's anyone waiting on cooling. So Bren mentioned, the standby mode. So if that 4-way valve in the outdoor unit is in the cooling position and I change it to heat, I'll see heating on my remote controller, but it's still going to be blinking standby on that remote controller because the Y series never changes mode until it's unanimous one way or the other. So that HVAC controller would swap based on outside air temperature automatically, and you could adjust those set points. You could do that now externally because we don't offer that product anymore. But you could do that now externally with a BMS system, right? So if you've got a BACnet export license or a Niagara system and you're using our City Multi Niagara driver, you can look at your outside air temperature from any source, right? And then you can automatically write your programming to say, yep, we're going to spend 15 minutes in cooling and 45 minutes in heating for this hour when we're at this outside air temperature. There's a couple other ways to do it. There's a contact on the outdoor unit. I believe it's CN3N that uses a 3-pin wiring harness, and you can get the wiring details in the service manual for the outdoor unit. But you can open and close those contacts to force the whole system into either heating or cooling. And when you use those contacts, it essentially locks out any other form of control for the mode. So you can't change a mode from the central controller. You can't change a mode from the remote controllers. It's entirely basically the position of that 4-way valve is based on that input. We've done a number of applications recently where instead of looking at the outside air temperature, which is okay, it's usually a fairly good approximation of what's going to be going on inside the building, we ignore that, and instead we look at the actual demand of the spaces, right? In a building, people aren't occupying the roof. They're not occupying the parking lot. They're occupying the inside where we've got our indoor units. And so with Kenza Cloud, which is a product that is been recently launched, and we're adding features to every couple of weeks, it seems like now. They've really picked up the development pace. We're going to be adding an automatic changeover feature that a user can just toggle on, and it's going to look at the room temperatures in the spaces for each refrigerant circuit, and it's going to look at the set points. And so if it calculates that the majority of the spaces need cooling, it's going to force that refrigerant circuit to switch to cooling. It's not going to mess with the set points. We're not going to overcool the spaces that are already cool enough. But we're not looking at outside air temperature and automatically forcing a switch every 45 minutes or 20 minutes. And so the advantages are really twofold in that it's less wear and tear on the outdoor equipment, right? I'm not sliding that four-way valve back and forth if I don't need to. And we're looking at comfort, which is the whole reason we have these systems to begin with. So just looking at the interior demand is how Kinza Cloud is going to be doing that. And if I were talking to someone now, whether it's a trained partner with an SC Plus on a system, or it's somebody with a Delta Controls, Johnson Controls, whatever the case may be, you can approximate this logic on your own without having to add a Kinza Cloud, just by using the points that are available from either that driver or that BACnet license.
Probably one of the more intuitive ways to balance that changeover.
Oh, for sure. It really it's no different than, back in my control days of changing over 2-pipe hydronic systems, right? If I've got fan coils and I've got a central plant, I've got to figure out, am I running the boiler or am I running the chiller plant? And sometimes in a week it may be both. And really the best way to determine that is, I don't care what's going on outside the building. I really want to know what's happening in the spaces where the people are, where the complaints are going to come from if they're not happy.
And that's really what's most important. You're right. It doesn't matter what's happening outside. It's all about comfort, which is the whole reason we're all here.
Yeah. And so speaking of comfort, this is actually the same strategy that's used in the Comfort app, or what used to be in Kumo Cloud. If you had an MXZ system, which has the same challenge, right? Everything has to be a unanimous vote to change that four-way valve. There's a feature in Comfort called changeover groups. And really, you're just telling the 3 Kinza adapters, so the 5 Kinza adapters, not Kinza, the Kumo or Comfort adapters, right? The wireless interface. Sorry, Charles and Mark Kulik. The wireless interfaces, right? They're not on the MNet side. They're not connected to the outdoor unit, but you're just telling the cloud, hey, operate these group of units together to make sure that the system is operating in the way that is going to provide the most amount of comfort.
All right.
I was actually curious about that. I'd always see, when you set up a Kumo, or now it's a Comfort app, it's always asking, do you want to add it to a changeover group? And so it's good to get, the clarification on what actually is happening there.
Oh yeah, it's really smart, because the indoor unit doesn't have auto mode, right? But we can select auto mode in the app. So what's really going on there? And what's happening is, behind the scenes, those adapters are all working together to put the four-way valve in the right place for heating or cooling. But the app demonstrates, hey, you're in auto heating or you're in auto cooling. So it's showing the user what they need to know, but hiding the information that might be confusing, right? Like, why does it say cooling when I've got it set to auto heat? And the answer is because, you've got a living room and a bedroom in getting the afternoon sun, right? So it's a really slick way to control comfort. So we've kind of adopted that strategy for the commercial side. And so that's what we're pushing into Kinza in the very near future. And we've done that for a lot of commercial projects over the years with Diamond Controls, and helping controls contractors implement that strategy on their own. We're here to help you guys get the equipment to do what you want. So if you have any questions about how to do that with your own system, feel free to reach out to my team at Applied Sales at hvac.mea.com, and we love answering those questions.
Oh, beautiful. I was going to ask you, you just stole my thunder. I was going to ask, how do we get, who do we contact if we want questions? So thanks for that.
No one could steal you've got so much thunder left over.
And,
You know what's funny is Ed likes talking about it so much that we got him to join the podcast like 5 minutes before we started.
Thank God.
Not even.
Because.
Not even 5 minutes. It was like.
Thank the Lord.
So a
Just
little.
because he likes talking about it so much.
A little inside baseball. Steve and Bryn and I were discussing this all the different ways, and I think, and one of us was like, I think we're missing a way. Is that it? And Steve, next thing you know, I see Steve on his cell phone, and he's talking to Ed, and Ed's like, yeah, I can get you. When do you need it by? He goes, right now. What are you doing? Join the podcast. So so Ed, thank you for the last minute attendance. I was counting it in my head. I think this is now your fourth time on the show at least. So one more time and you get a jacket, and it's just going to be a plaid jacket with the METUS Tech Show logo on, on a crest there on one of the pockets there, whatever you call it. And
we'll make a METUS Guest of the Year award.
I will happily wear that jacket to Kura Revolving Sushi. So.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I think we got to get uniforms for everybody.
Awesome.
Yep, plaid.
Yep.
So let's just recap. We talked about changeover. We talked about scheduling in the central controller. Whether or not you have a central controller, you can use a dip switch that will either select a specific group of one or the lowest addressed unit. And we talked about weighted average, which I think we can all agree that I would use that as a last resort. It's not really preferred because it's not really going to make people as comfortable as possible. There's so many variables in there. And then we talked about Kenza, using Kenza Cloud. We talked about using the BMS. You can program the BMS to just based on an outdoor temperature. And did I miss anything?
Yeah, we talked about changeover through the Comfort app.
Oh yeah, the Comfort app. If I've got a smart multi.
Don't forget doing it with the BMS or the Niagara driver.
Yep.
And really, the thing that all of these have in common is that it's a way to automatically get everything into the same mode, just to move the four-way valve.
Yeah, and that's
it was the CN3N, right? CN3N at the outdoor unit. You can use that as like a switch in order to, use something third party to get that changeover.
There you go.
All right.
Cool.
I think that's it.
So you want to know something funny about Taco Bell? Because we brought it up earlier, is the first time I had Taco Bell was probably 4 years ago. And it was the first time I'd ever tried it. And it was probably a week after I had COVID for the first time. And I had completely lost my taste. So even today, after having tried Taco Bell, I still don't know what it tastes like.
I'm going to tell you something. It's been at least maybe 20, 25 years, if not longer, since I've had Taco Bell. But I don't know. I hate to badmouth Taco Bell, but it's dehydrated meat, and if to add water, I'm not a fan.
It's pretty darn good. I'll tell you. Whatever it is. Yeah.
Taco Bell, KFC, they're all owned by PepsiCo.
Correct.
Yum Brands is the owner.
Yeah, they also make Fritos and Lay's potato chips and all that.
Yeah. So one of the reasons they own them is so that Pepsi will have a commercial outlet. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in Atlanta and everyone knows that Coke is superior. But that's strategically one of the reasons that they're owned by PepsiCo, so that they won't have to compete.
Interesting. Now, Ed, I guess you're the Chick-fil-A's most valuable customer. What do you get when you go there?
About $80 worth of food for my kids.
That's why they like you.
I have so many kids that if I lost a custody battle, I would end up with them.
That's funny. Hey, your poor wife. Yeah. All right, Ed. Thank you again for joining us. Enjoy whatever next time you go to Chick-fil-A. Enjoy that. We do have, I don't know, we have it on the calendar yet, but you've got my guarantee that we're going to be going to that conveyor belt sushi place the next time I'm in town. We can meet you there.
Can I give you some depressing math homework to leave on?
Sure.
My lifetime Chick-fil-A points, and I started at the premier tier where I get 12 points per dollar spent.
Yeah.
Since they launched the app, I have 167,666 points.
Wow.
Do the math on that, and then weep gently that you don't own a Chick-fil-A.
I think I'm going to buy a Chick-fil-A and put it in like a quarter of a mile from your house. Sounds like you could keep me in business.
They did.
Where does Ed live? That's where we're putting a next Chick-fil-A.
It's on the way to baseball. It's on the way to band. It's on the way to dance. It's on the way to I've worked too long and I'm tired and don't feel like cooking. I couldn't. Yeah, I mean,
Chick-fil-A has triangulated Ed's house.
Yeah,
is what he's trying to tell us.
Yeah.
Since they launched the app, and don't forget that my wife also has the app and has her points, and she's the same status tier that I am. So I just did the math. It's $13,972
in Chick-fil-A food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
so many kids. I'm telling you.
I can't even imagine that. I don't think I've spent $13,000 on anything. Even my last car didn't cost that much.